Hey guys, ETP Duelist here, and today we're going to do a Why is this card bad video. I actually got this idea when people talk about Stratos, and I'm like, you know what? Why is Sangan bad? Because Sangan's a worse version of Stratos. And I know he's generic and everything, but when we go through the video, you're going to see why. Just because he's generic and works in every deck, doesn't mean he deserves to be bad, and it doesn't make him like the best searcher anymore. Now, back in the day, Sangan was really, really good. You could just search out whatever options you needed for. I mean, he would get Agent of Mystery Earth, so you could search for Vetus. You could get Lumina, Lightsword Summoner, be able to open up some plays. And it was just, you know, really, really easy. But now, getting those weak cards is kind of just slow. I mean, let's look at some relevant decks, if you don't believe me. So let's do some tier 1 decks, in my opinion. So you got Mermails. Sangan good at Mermails? No. First off, he's too slow. When you're talking about Abyss Sphere and you can go into Abyss Lindy, that's pretty much 6 Abyss Lindies right there. Sangan's not really searchable. He's not going to help the water theme too much. And they're alright, just too many other searchers. Not only got the Sphere, so if you just need to do that one final punch, you'll have Deep Sea Diva, and you got Abyss Lindy. Not to mention Dragoons, and in some cases Tidal. Like, that's just way too many searchers. You're never going to put Sangan into a Mermail deck. Let's look at Girgia, you know? This deck has a lot more 1,500 or less attack monsters, right? Well, he's going to suck at Girgia just as much as Mermail. Again, it's too slow to wait for an opponent to send Sangan to the graveyard to get the searching effects. You have to draw it randomly. That's the problem with Mermail. There are too many other searchers. Pretty much everything in Girgia is searching. Okay, so you're probably saying, well, yo, ETP Duelist, that's a good point, everything but the tier 1 decks, but you're going to make tier 2 decks too strong. Okay, well, let's take a look at some tier 2 decks. What about Constellar? No. Nothing under 1500 is relevant. They only have their one searcher who's level 3 with 700 attack that you can get with Sangan. And taking 2 turns to search for what you want is just too long in the game now. The game's too fast. You're probably going to die in 2 turns. What about Fire King? No. I mean, you can search for Garudix, but the thing is that the little baby Garudix is only going to work if you can surprise your opponent with it. And Tour Guide plus Sangan, it was really good back then, but it's just so obvious now. Like, if your opponent can get effects to stop Sangan. These cards didn't exist before, but now they do. So, you know, you go Tour Guide into Sangan, you pass. Well, an opponent could just make Abyss Dweller or Armidas, Keeper of Illusions. Now, Armidas isn't really that popular, but it's still an option, and it's still a good card. And Abyss Dweller, pretty much everybody runs for Mermail. So, right there, you can't really do Tour Guide plus Sangan. I mean, the only way that combo is going to work, and like work well, is if you Torrential Tribute your opponent's monster and you send your own Sangan to the graveyard. But Torrential's limited to 1, so that combo is not even that effective. None of that, but you leave Tour Guide pretty naked when you use that combo. She's just out there for Crimson Blader, and if you notice, a lot of the decks that ran Tour Guide and Sangan were Chaos decks, or decks that ran high-leveled monsters like Agent. So, it wasn't really... They're not really going to like Crimson Blader, because even if you get the Sangan search next turn, it's not going to help you any. He's just a little past his prime. Let's just free Sangan, you know. And I'm going to bring up the fact that I didn't even go into other searchers. I did a little bit with the tier 1 decks, but you have things like Gear Frame, Eclipse Wavered, so even high-powered decks that like used to like Sangan, and they might be okay with it, it's not exactly a necessity anymore. So those are just my opinions. Tell me what you guys think.